Hello, hello. Welcome to SOS Small Business Success Podcast. Glad to have you here with me today. And we got a fun topic to be able to talk about today. And as you know, I'm your host, Bonnie Bonadeo. Welcome aboard to the SOS Small Business Podcast. We're always about building brands that will survive and helping people to thrive. And the two go hand in hand, as I always say, that you got to build a brand that is bigger than yourself in order to really survive. But you as an individual have to be able to grow in order to thrive and for your business to be able to thrive. And today we're going to be talking about some great opportunities of managing stress, because man, I'm telling you, we're all stressed out. We've been stressed out for more than a year, and it's continuing on, and we have to get back to having more empathy, and empathy is a big part of this conversation that I'm going to be sharing with you today. But remember that the context of this podcast is to be able to have you always look at, what are the strategic opportunities for you to have success? And if you're stressed, I promise you success is going to seem harder to achieve. And our strategy is always about looking at these 5 core areas of having a successful business, and that's sales, operation, mindset, marketing, and education. And today we're going to be talking about mindset, and mindset attached to how do we get back to that place where things are going smoothly for us and not necessarily in a stress OS situation. Okay. So we have to be able to find those ways. We got to stop pulling our hair out. We have to stop believing that it's not going to get better. We have to start challenging ourselves to be able to find those new normals of what we want to bring into our world, and the ones that maybe we don't need to come back, that just were a missing from pre-pandemic days to now. But my question that I want to ask you is, how do you manage stress? How do you currently manage stress? Are you an accelerator when stress is in your life, or do you put on the brakes when stress is in your life? And those are two very different end of the scale approaches to this. But some people are really motivated by things being or feeling stressful. Stress used to be a great motivator for me, but I realized I was exerting a lot more energy when I used stress as a motivator. Now I think way more strategically, and I've learned to put on the brakes a little bit to reassess, reevaluate, readjust, revise, and reformulate the direction that I'm going. Because what I've discovered is that just because it worked 10 years ago doesn't mean that it works today. Just because it worked in 2019 doesn't mean that it's going to work in 2021. So there's a lot of adjustments that we have to make here. Now, as you guys know, I always kind of have this podcast around kind of a sailing and boating theme. I thought I'd put a little background in today because this is really where I want to be. This is my stress reliever. Is when I'm at the beach, is when I feel the sun on me, when I can smell salt air or have sand between my toes. That is ultimately when I'm really stress-free. But until I can get to a beach, until I can get back on a boat, then I have to be adult-like and manage my stress. Now, here's some things that you guys need to know. Boats don't have any brakes. I know you know that, right? We're all aware of that. Boats don't have any brakes. There isn't like this, brake opportunity of just being able to say, whoa, we got to put on the brakes. And nor do small businesses, okay? So your business doesn't have any brakes either. It has an accelerator, but it doesn't really have a brake. And if it does have a brake and you're hitting it, you might be doing more damage than good in regards to that. Now, what we do know is that if boats don't have a brake, then we have to be able to adjust our sails, or we can put our engines in reverse. And you all have felt that, I'm sure, if you've been on a plane, because that's a similar concept, right? Is to be able to stop the plane when it's coming in from a landing, is that they put the engines in reverse in order to counteract it, type of thing. So you can adjust the sails or you can put the engine in reverse. But the truth is, even putting the engine in reverse means eventually you're going to go backwards. And neutral on a boat is not mean that you're not going anywhere. Okay. So you put your car in neutral on a hill, you're going somewhere. Okay. When you take your foot off the brake type of thing. So neutral may have you moving, but it may have you moving in the wrong direction. So you might have some stressful situations, or you might have some things that are not working in your business. And what you're doing is you're hanging out on the fence, you're hanging out in neutral, but your business is still moving. Is it moving forward? I don't know. Is it moving sideways, backwards, wrong way, right way? Who knows? But it's still moving, and you need to be aware of that. So as a leader, as a business owner, you always have to be making adjustments. It's an all day long, every day, just arm yourself with being able to make adjustments. Small, consistent, never ending adjustments while in motion. Okay? While in motion. So that kind of helps you understand that, we need to be able to look at how we're managing stress and what we need to be doing, because there's no stopping, right? We were shut down for, anywhere from 5 weeks to 6 months last year, depending on where you lived. And even then, I can tell you, most business owners were not stopping. They were still doing something in their business. They were still trying to create revenue sources. They were still trying to keep their business, alive, thriving, kicking, maybe not in the same manner and maybe not to the same degree, but there's no stopping, right? We didn't just all shut down and turn on Netflix. Although I'm sure that there are times that we probably should have. It would have been a better stress reliever than worrying about, oh my God, now what? When are we going to open up again? Am I going to get COVID? But if there's no stopping, there is readjusting, there is revising, and there is reformulating. And we all know this. We all know this as small business owners, that we have to be able to do that. And so it's the same with managing stress. Sometimes you just have to adjust or revise or reformulate the way that you're managing stress, because maybe how you managed stress in 2019 was one way, but how you're managing your stress in 2021 might be something different. So I want to give you a little tool that I use in coaching, and certainly for myself, but certainly as a foundation in being able to coach people and being able to help people that feel as though they're in crisis, okay? Feel as though they're in crisis. And to be able to look at things from a different point of view, all right? And it's called the SOSS theory. How ironic that it's called the SOSS theory, right? So the first thing is to be able to stop, okay? And I don't mean, it's not a full stop. It's not a hard stop, but it is a stop at whatever you're doing in that moment, to be able to create a pause, a pattern interrupt in a sense, so that you can look in a different direction. The second thing is to be able to oxygenate. And I see that I clearly spelled oxygenate wrong here. I forgot the Y in that. Why would you want to oxygenate? Well, because if you can change your breathing patterns, if you can go from allowing the stress hormone to go into your system to creating deep breaths, and you can literally change the physiology of those hormones going into your system. You can prevent them from doing more damage. You can prevent them from being in your system longer. You can counteract them with good hormones, okay? And then you want to be able to strengthen empathy, all right? And we'll talk a little bit about how to be able to do that empathy. And we'll talk about a little bit about all of these here coming up. And then, of course, you want to search for solutions. All right. Search for solutions. A lot of times we think in the search for solutions that it's blaming other people or forcing other people to be fixed, or that what they're doing is wrong and what we're doing is right. And sometimes we just need to look at ourselves first before we look at any other situation or pattern of why certain things are happening. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the first one. The first S is stop. When we get stressed, we have a tendency to react. And usually the reaction is one of three reactions. We are a fighter mentality, a flight mentality, or a freeze mentality. These are what we call our natural fear responses, okay? Now, you probably have had all three. You probably mix between all three at some point, but one of them is a dominant one. One shows up faster, quicker, unannounced, And automatically, before the other second or third one can maybe come into play in a sense. So I know for a fact that I'm a fighter mentality. So my first thing is to build up a defense, to be defensive, to be larger than life, to be loud. And, and it has served me well in certain situations where I'm really in danger. Okay. But it doesn't serve me well in situations where it's a perceived danger. And I might actually be making the situation worse by going into fight mode. Okay. Flight mode would be where you're trying to avoid situations, and sometimes avoiding a situation is okay, but you can't avoid it for too long because then it appears very passive, like you don't care. And people pick up on that, especially from a leadership point of view. If you just avoid everything, this is when, things get out of hand and culture gets shifted in there. And then, of course, there's the freeze fear response. And the freeze fear response would be just literally, I mean, it says it all. You are just freezing in this moment and you don't have a reaction. Your reaction is to freeze. And what happens is that people don't understand that maybe there is a processing time with a freeze mentality. A fighter goes into quick reaction. A freezer goes into no reaction. And a flight person goes into reaction where they move away from the situation, avoid even acknowledging that the situation is there. None of these are good solutions to a moment of high level of stress. None of them are. But naturally, our body does this to be able to protect ourselves. It's a very, very old instinctual part of our DNA, okay? It's the animal part of us. So when we go into one of these three things, we have to be able to stop. Okay, this is the moment of stop. If I know I'm going into fight and I feel that like fight mentality coming up, or I feel the need to avoid, or I feel like I'm stuck in a frozen situation, then I'm aware I'm in a high stress situation, or what we can call a hijack situation. And any of these three will keep mental and emotional state of stress high. And that's not what you want. You want to be able to reduce the stress moment immediately. So your intention in this is to be aware and reduce and counteract this reaction with thinking, okay? And the thinking requires us to be able to stop. Because when you can get out of the emotional mindset and into a logical mindset, you can shift the way things can look. You can shift the way we're going to go into this next piece here with a little bit more solutions. So let's use an example here for this. So let's say that a client or a potential client cancels at the last minute, right? Bummer. This happens, right? And especially now, I think people are, oh God, the whole like RSVP mentality is just like completely gone to the wayside, people book appointments, don't even bother to call or show up and or cancel at the last minute and don't understand the impact that it has on the people that they're doing this with. They don't really understand the impact that it's having. So we're quick to jump to reactions and assumptions really fast. And there could be evidence to be able to support that reaction or assumption, but it's evidence that could be false evidence as well. It's evidence that might be based on someone else's situation, not on this particular situation. So we have to stop clumping it all together like it means something, okay? Now, the brain does that automatically because it says, ooh, this is familiar. I'm going to file it into this particular situation, and it's going to look worse than it is, okay? But if we look at these things as individual situations, then we can manage the stress just a little bit more. So you might jump to a conclusion or an assumption that says everyone is canceling today. And then you have to be able to kind of look at that and say, is that true? Is that factual, right? Then you might go into yourself and say, now that they've canceled, I'm not going to make enough money and I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. Okay. And then you want to blame that particular client situation for that circumstance that you're having. But, again, that's not true. Okay. You have to, I mean, it could be true that you may not be able to make your rent, but you have to be able to look at it from a perspective of, you have to balance out that a certain percentage of these things are naturally going to happen anyway. Okay. And then, it's like you could look at this and say, she's done this before, I'm going to fire her as a client type of thing. But the truth is, again, you don't have all the facts. You don't have all the information that's giving you enough data to be able to make an intelligent decision because you're in an emotional state of mind. You might summarize this by saying, all clients suck, okay? Or you might take it more personally and just say, God, I suck. I'm never going to be successful if this is what's going to keep happening to me all the time. And it might take you down that rabbit hole of, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be able to make my business successful. I don't even know why I bothered trying. I need to find a new job or a career. Okay. That's that rabbit hole. Or maybe you're going into a Shark Tank there. And, and then you might sum it all up with a very, abrasive approach to, F this, F that, blah, 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 blah. And what that does is it accelerates this stress hormone in you, that it keeps it alive and active and in your system longer. So then what happens is when the next client shows up, instead of it being a pleasant situation, okay, or the next customer calls in, instead of it being a pleasant situation, it now becomes a defensive situation because you're still holding on to that stress from the previous situation. You haven't let it go. You haven't cleansed it out. And now it's carrying into the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one and so on. Okay. That's what we don't want to do because that is not managing stress. Okay. All right. So number 2 is to oxygenate. Oh, good. I spelled it right this time. So deep breathing will reduce the impact and effect that it has on the stress hormone that gets released, which is cortisol. Okay. So when cortisol gets into your system, it's what we call kind of like a hijack situation. Cortisol releases itself into your system because it's designed to be able to protect you. And what it does is it kicks in fight, flight, or freeze mentality so that you can protect yourself, that you can save yourself in a sense. You can fight, you can flee, you can freeze, okay? So if you think about this from like a real life danger, like, you're in the woods and you turn the corner and there's a big grizzly bear staring at you, okay? You're going to go into one of these reactions. And now based on it being a grizzly bear, there's different reactions that you might want to do. And you'd have to know that if you were going to be, traipsing through the woods where grizzly bears live. But ultimately what you want to be able to do is, cortisol in your system in that moment might save you, but a client being late or a client not coming in or canceling at the last minute, cortisol in your system isn't going to not save you. It's going to do nothing but hurt you and impact you potentially for the rest of your day. Okay. So this allows you to go from this emotional hijack to rational thinking when you breathe deeply. Okay, so it's breathing deeply could literally change the physiology in your system. Okay, if you stay in an emotional hijack, cortisol could stay in your system for up to 4 hours and keep the stress levels really high for you, which means that we don't make good choices at this point. So let's say that you're distracted, you get behind the wheel of your car to maybe go grab some lunch, you're not paying attention, you end up in an accident or something like that. Or worse, you end up in the McDonald's drive-through and eat really bad for that day. And then that just adds not only stress to your system, but really poor nutrition to your system, okay? Not good, not good. It ends up being that we start making really bad choices. So you have to give yourself a moment when you stop and oxygenate. Give yourself a moment to respond to your body, the actions your body is putting on you, okay? And to reply to those actions, to be able to be aware and recognize what your body is trying to tell you here. Okay, because it's never as bad as it is. All right. So I want you to think of a time when you reacted to something and it made the situation worse. Okay, it kind of created a domino effect in a sense. Let's say that a client texts you and says, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm not able to make it in." And you decide that you are going to reply back to them or text them, and you're trying to make it right, which means that you're making them wrong. You're justifying your situation, blaming them for this situation. And what you're allowing really in this moment is you're allowing the circumstance to kind of ruin your whole day. And the truth is you never asked maybe what the situation was. Maybe there was a really urgent situation that has happened to this person, okay? Maybe the fact that they did even bother to tell you they weren't showing up is remarkable compared to what's going on. I see posts like this all the time on these, different forums that I'm on, where people are ruthless and rude and unconscionable in the way that they reply and react and respond. And that goes for you too as the small business owner. Okay. You do the same thing. So we have to get better at being able to kind of like manage the situation, manage ourselves in the moment, and then manage the way that we communicate back. So instead of maybe being reactive, and if you're a fighter, this would be the time that I'm going to recommend that you just freeze, just take a moment, or just avoid replying or texting back in the moment. Just give it a second, okay? And not think of like what you could do. And this is where empathy comes in. So this is the next S, second S in SOSS, is strengthen your empathy chip, okay? So empathy is one of the most powerful ways to reduce stress and empower yourself to get through anything, okay? You got to put yourself in their shoes. And do you have all the facts based on the circumstances before you get all riled up over everything? Is there any blame on your part that you can take responsibility for? Okay. I know in this moment you don't want to, put anything on yourself and not have it be about you. But the truth is you need to go internally, look and see, if this keeps happening to me, why is this happening to me? If this client keeps this situation, is making the situation happen to me with them over and over again, why am I allowing this client to get away with this over and over again? There's lots of things that you can look at yourself as the initial party of revising, reformulating, and readjusting here. And what else can you do to strengthen the empathy part to reduce this pattern? Okay. First you, then them. First you, what can I do? What can I do to make this situation look differently? What can I do to disrupt this pattern that seems to be happening to me consistently? Okay. Then you want to look at them, the situation that's attached to them. Do I have all the facts? Do I know why they canceled? Do I, is this a repeat pattern with this person? Is there something going on that I'm not aware of in my community or in the world that has prevented them from being able to come in? There's lots of opportunities for you to say, I don't have all the information in order to fire back. I'm firing you kind of, situation in here. So you have to, here's the solution, to this that I want you guys to provide when it comes to empathy. I understand. I understand is a magical and powerful tool that you need to start using on a regular and ongoing basis. Now, I understand is exactly as it is. Okay. It doesn't say, oh, please do this to me next time as well. It doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't say they're wrong or you're right. Okay. So if someone texts you and said, hey, I'm sorry, I need to cancel, then all you do is say, I understand. Because when you say, I understand, it allows empathy to be present on the other side of the aisle here. Okay. And then it gives you access to share a message next. Okay. Typically what we do is somebody says, I'm so sorry, I need to cancel. And then the first thing you do is you fire a policy at them. So you say something like, I have a cancellation policy, so you're going to be billed, you're going to be charged blank, blank, blank money. Okay. And then all that does is create a reaction from the person on the other end of the phone, because you have no facts. You have no understanding as to why they've needed to cancel. It could be something really important or really devastating or really tragic, okay? You don't know the facts. So just to throw that out there will create a reaction in the other person. And then what happens is you have this tit for tat going on, and nobody's right. Both people are stressed, and then there's blame and resentment and all that other crap that you don't want, which adds more stress to your life, okay? So if you say, I understand, it gives you access to doing the next step. So here could be some opportunities you could do. I understand. I appreciate you getting back to me. I hope everything is all right. Please know you can reschedule on the online booking link at any time. That person will then reply back and say, thank you so much for understanding. I appreciate it. Again, I'm sorry. I'll share with you what's happening when I have a moment. Okay. All right. So it could go something like this. I understand. I appreciate you reaching out to me. In the future, please try to give me 24-hour notice if you can. I hope everything's okay. And then you can close it out the same way. Okay. If it's somebody that maybe is a repeat offender here, then it could be, I understand. I appreciate you getting back to me. By the way, I have a policy that I will need to charge you because it's not 24 hours out. However, if you book your appointment with me as quickly as possible, I can let that bypass this time. Okay, so you're telling them what your policy is, but you're also pulling it back with the idea that they're going to rebook. Now they're aware of your policy. Now they're aware that you will implement the policy, okay? And you could also say, I understand. I hope everything is okay. Please feel free to rebook on this link here, okay? I understand. I appreciate you getting back to me. In the future, I hope that you'll give me more notice. By the way, I have a policy at 24 hours out. So, please rebook here. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for letting me know. All right. Big difference in how that, and it's the same amount of words, because you guys are all thinking, oh, I don't want to text that much. But what happens is because you text something that triggers the other person to have a reaction, you end up texting back and forth, trying to be right, trying to be right, trying to be right. They're trying to prove they're right. They're trying to prove you're right. And the truth is you don't have enough information or enough facts to be able to say anybody's wrong and anybody's right. Shit happens, move on. Okay. But shit happens, be empathetic to it happening by starting out with, I understand, or I appreciate you letting me know. These type of things go a long way to creating great customer relations. Also gives you that gap, that perfect little opening to be able to share your policy and either implement it or have them be aware of it and release it. In other words, don't charge them this time, but let them know next time you will charge them. Okay. This is a forgiving society that we all have to have. This is being able to have empathy and be a good business person. Okay. And to be a good business person. So remember, the I understand philosophy is very powerful. And then, of course, the final S in this is search for solutions. So searching for solutions goes like this. If you get hijacked or upset, emotionally charged, the part of your brain that is being triggered is the stress part of the brain, which then releases the cortisol in your system. And the whole idea of stopping, oxygenating, and strengthening empathy is to be able to get you out of the emotional part of your brain and into a more logical part of your brain. Okay, so you want to get into the cortex brain activity, shifted away from emotional amygdala response system to cortex thinking brain activity. And what you can do in this space as you're transitioning there, searching for solutions, is commit to some solutions to fix the problem. First you, then them. In other words, what are you going to do to make things better? What can they do to align with how things could be better? In other words, you might have to say, I need to let this client know what my policy is. Okay. You always want to err on the side of communicating your concerns. All right. So if it's just flat out telling them this is my policy and I'm charging you and you're an asshole and you've done this to me before, or maybe you haven't done it to me before, but 5 other clients have, so you're going to pay the price for this. Okay. Err on the side of communicating your concerns, and then make small adjustments to get back on course and not let the stress OS get the better of you. Okay. Easy things to be able to apply. But the only way that you're going to apply these is if you are aware when they start to show up. So how can we prevent this again? This is looking at solutions. How do we prevent this again? Look at your systems. How can you improve your systems that you have in place? Look at the circumstances. Okay. Did they book their appointment 4 weeks out, and then all of a sudden this week ended up, the week that they booked it is spring break, and their kids are home and they didn't even think about it. And then all of a sudden the reminder shows up, the confirmation shows up, and it's like, oh, you have a hair appointment tomorrow. And they're like, oh God, I got to reschedule that. I can't do the hair appointment this week. And the next thing you know, they get all caught up because all this, their entire week has changed being spring break. And then they forget. And then 1 hour they get that other reminder appointment, and then they cancel at that time. Okay. These are circumstances. They happen. All right. These are societal circumstances. They happen. This is an individual circumstance. It happens. All right. So don't get all, caught up in this, don't be throwing your clients out to the sharks too quickly. Look at ways that you can be more empathetic. Look at ways that you can create better solutions. Okay. Look at ways that you can communicate more effectively with clients. And remember that it's all about kind of adjusting the sails to meet the wind. All right. You can't force the wind to be in the direction that you want it in. The wind is going to be in the direction that it is in, and you have to adjust your sails to the wind. And when you do, life becomes so much more easeful. Okay. So I hope that helps you guys just look at how we're managing stress and how it's not working for us a good portion of the time. All right. So you guys, the SOS podcast is a foundation of SOS coaching, and I want you to get the support that you need. So I've set up a free coaching session for you so that you can adjust your mindset and sail to success. It's very simple. It's very powerful, and it's not at all. I'm not going to do the big sale on you, get you on the phone for a half hour and then do the big sale on you. I'm really going to have you, share with me an area of opportunity that you want to make better. And if SOS coaching is a good fit to be able to help that particular situation to get better. And if you want to set up that free session with me, you can go to www.sosssaloncoaching.com. Now, it's salon coaching, but if you guys are outside of the salon industry, this is small business coaching. I just haven't had a chance to change out the URL here. So if you're a small business, I promise you I can help you in that same manner. It's okay to get help. And sometimes your business needs you to grow first. All right. Thanks for joining me today, you guys. Remember that the SOS brand is all about building brands that survive while developing you to thrive. We'll see you next week.